Jason, oh, as if by magic he appears.
That was time perfectly, wasn't it?
How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, I enjoyed our quick chat beforehand because we've not met.
Yeah,
Fan of your work and everything else with it, so very well done. And thanks for agreeing to actually come on live.
no,
I should say we do have a few explicit images in tonight. So just be aware of that and things, guys. Nothing to offend anything, you know that.
Yeah, none of me either.
Yeah, we're probably more offensive, or I am at least in my face, than basically Jason's images are and things really. Jason, before we get going and start to look at images, tell us about you. What's life about? How's the world of photography? Where did it all start?
Oh, I mean, that could be a 2-hour talk in itself. Usual thing, really. When I was a kid, I was given a little camera, just a little point and shoot thing. So I did some black and white photos then. Then I went to college and I did media studies. So it was like TV, film, photography, writing, journalism, that sort of thing. And I wanted to get into doing like TV and stuff, or like making films and stuff. That was my main objective. But at the time when we was at college, we had to find a work placement, and I couldn't get any work placements in like BBC or ITV and places like that. So my tutors, because I was so lazy and I didn't find anywhere, my tutor said to me, I've got a friend who's a chief photographer at the Sunday Mercury newspaper. He said, you could probably go there for the week, and see if you like it and go around with him for the week. So I was like, yeah, that'll have to do. We'd done photography at college, darkroom stuff and then developing. So I thought, yeah, I'll go. It's still media related. So I went there and I spent the whole week with a guy called Kevin Murphy, who's the chief photographer. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I was thinking, oh my God, this guy gets paid to drive around all week, taking photos of people, meeting different people, some right characters and stuff. And every job was different. It was like you went from doing a fashion shoot in the morning to like a car crash on the afternoon. And I thought, this is great. What a great way to earn money. So, and luckily at the time, they had a lad who worked in the darkroom. It was still all film then, and he just got a job as a trainee photographer in Scotland. So he was leaving at the end of the week. I was there.
Wow.
And they said to, he was like, I was in the lucky spot, to be honest. And they said to me, would you be interested? You know how to work a darkroom? You know how to like use Photoshop? It was like Photoshop version 1 then. And they said, would you be interested in working weekends, come in part-time, do all the scanning, develop the negs for the photographers when they come in? And I jumped at the chance because I thought it's a foot in the door,
Yeah.
Because I realised how hard it was to get into media industries and stuff. So I just said, yeah, on the spot. I didn't think about it. It was just like, yeah, I'm going to do it. So I started doing that, and I was working in the darkroom every weekend. And eventually I got myself a camera and I could get loads of film for free because I just asked the darkroom manager, and he used to like give me a box full of like Kodak film. So I started doing that, and what we used to have at the newspaper was like a photo diary. So in this photo diary, it was like every job for the day and what photographer was going to it. So I started looking for things what was in public places. So it was usually things like parades, protests, anything outdoors where I could just turn up with my camera and take pictures. So I used to look through the diary every weekend, see what was there, and I'd nip out and do jobs. And the more I did it, the better I was getting. And I started noticing at the paper, like they said, actually, you're taking some nice pictures. Do you fancy going out and covering this? We ain't got no one to cover it. So I'd just pop out and like do a little headshot of the Lord Mayor or something, or and things like that. And the trust was getting built up with it. And then there was a riot in Birmingham. This is like 94. There was a protest group called Reclaim the Streets, and they're having a big protest. And I thought, I'll go to that and try and get some shots and stuff. And I got there, and it was quite boring. It's the usual placards, people, someone with a loudspeaker shouting, and and crowd gathering. But then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he just kicked off, and they started running off into Birmingham city centre, and they were like smashing shop windows. The police were all over the place chasing them, and this, that, and the other. And I was just running around like an idiot with my camera, and I got a shot of this guy being arrested in the doorway of like a shop, and like the police bundling him out of this doorway. And I just took a few frames, and I ran back to the office with my film. I mean, all the other photographers were there from the paper. So I ran back, developed my film, and we used to have this monitor in the dark room, so you could look at your negs.
Yeah.
And it had a TV. And I didn't realise, but this TV, there was also connected to the editor's office. He had a TV there, and there was a TAN-eye system. And he pressed the button, and he was like, "Whose photos are these?" And I was like, "They're mine." He's like, "Who's that?" I said, "It's Jason. I work in the dark room." And he went, "Right." He goes, "Go back a few frames." So I was like, slid my film across. He went, you used to be able to like press this button, and he'd give you a printout. He goes, "Do me a print of that." He goes, "I want to use it on the front page tomorrow." And I was like, "Oh my God." And that was it. And he just spurred me on even more then to try and do stuff. And yeah, and then eventually a trainee photographer's job come up on 2 of the local newspapers, and I managed to get that. And then it went on from there, and like for the next 20 years, I was a press photographer. Yeah, so I went started on the weeklies, went to the nationals, the dailies, and then 2012 I got made redundant with about 7 of us because newspapers were getting rid of photographers.
Yeah.
So that gave me a chance, and then I went freelance. So then I could work. I did stuff for like Getty, Reuters, PA, loads of other newspapers. I started doing weddings, which I don't do now. Yeah, and it just went on from there, and yeah, and that's how I got into it really.
Well, do you still carry your card?
No, I haven't got one. I haven't got one anymore. I still do freelance jobs like on the side. I do like crufts every year for the Kennel Club and things like that. And if someone will ring me up, like an old photographer I know, and say, "Could you help me out? I've got this job. Can you cover this for me?" Yeah, and I just cover it, so help them out and stuff. So yeah, but a lot of the stuff you don't need your card for anymore. So it's like,
no,
you know.
No, they'll take any photograph from anybody, any time of the day, isn't it?
Well, that's it. Yeah.
And pay them less than they would have paid to anyway, and then syndicate it, you know.
Well, it was all reader content. We got made redundant. So we're going to rely on the members of the public to send us pictures in. So yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but brilliant news that. I didn't realise the kind of the press was such a big kind of part of your background. Really, do you miss those days at all?
Yeah, I don't miss how tired I was. But yeah, I totally miss it. Day in, day out, it was absolutely awesome. You know, it was like I say, no 2 days were the same. It was go and cover a murder, then go and photograph someone with a check presentation, then go and do a local football team. And it was also, and then like obviously doing like covering the Premier League. So I used to travel everywhere, you know, all the football grounds and stuff. So yeah, I loved it. It was absolutely brilliant. It was hard work. I mean, I'm not saying it was easy, but yeah, brilliant.
The local
brilliant
press
time.
boys by us that I knew, they used to have a kind of a challenge each week of who could actually get a check presentation in the newspaper.
we always used to do stuff like that. We used to have one where it was like, see how many times you can get your own car in the background of a shot in the paper, things like that. And royal visits when Princess Anne used to visit. She used to have this thing where after a certain time, when she was getting annoyed with the photographer, she'd pull this face, she'd give this stern look. So before like she arrived, all the photographers would have a bet so you could get this shot of her pulling this face. Yeah. Silly things like that, but it just made the day better, and it was a good laugh at the time, you know.
The journey from press photographer to fine art, black and white, photographing models and things, really, where's that journey beginning? Where did it kind of start off for you and things?
Well, shooting models, it was originally when I was still working at the paper, like quite early on in my like newspaper career, because we'd always get fashion shoots come up. So it'd be like Harvey Nicks want to do a fashion shoot, or they're going to do a feature about a certain designer, things like that. So I used to love doing the model shoots. You know, it was great. Used to get some cool locations, and meet some really interesting people, and then like having to deal with art directors and all that sort of thing. But I loved it. And then the more I did it, they could see at work I loved doing it them. So every time like that sort of shoot came in, they'd give it to me. And then I'd do it in my spare time as well. I'd book models. And then the fine art, nude, like the nude side of it, I think every photographer, if you start shooting models, eventually you'll want to try that, because model photography, there's that many different genres of it. You try everything, don't you? You know, it's like, I'll have a go at that. I'll try doing glamour. I'll try fashion, you know. And I sort of like love doing the art nude stuff and that. I think mainly because as a kid, I was well into art. Like, you know, old masters and people like Rubens and stuff, and I did lots of like nude art paintings. So I sort of, when I first started doing nudes, I always used to try and light it like a Rubens painting or a Rembrandt painting sort of thing. So that's where it went on from, really. And it's just
and what about the black and white? What's the black and white pull for you? I know we got one color image tonight, haven't we? But what's the black and white pull?
Well, bizarrely, what probably a lot of people wouldn't realise, I'm colourblind. So it was, I never really told anyone at the newspaper at the time. Because I thought, I know, if I let them know that, they'll sack me. So, and colour for me, I always struggled with colour. It was, considering like all my work at the paper was colour, I just preferred black and white. I mean, I used to shoot, because we used to work for the Birmingham Post, and they'd print black and white pictures as well still, which I loved. And colours, just one of them things. I got to the point where I learnt what colours were in pictures by what the readings were, like the YMCK things. So if I knew that like, there was that much magenta and that much, that's like a deep red, or, you know, stuff like that, which was a bizarre way of doing it. But and colour as well, it's timeless, isn't it? Like black and white, sorry. It's like, it's timeless. It's, if you look at a photo taken in 1980 or 1970, as soon as you see the colours in it, you know what year that was taken. Whereas with black and white, I could take a photo today and make it look like it's in the 70s without the colour in it. You know, it's that kind of thing. And and it's just, I think a lot of the photographers who I like admired and researched when I was getting into it, a lot of their stuff was black and white. You know, because back then it was all black and white film, wasn't it, really? You know, so that's it.
Let's start to talk about the first image, shall we?
Okay.
Talk to me about this image and kind of the background with it and what it's about and so on.
Yeah, well, this is a model called Mary. I've shot Mary quite a few times now over the years. I did her first ever shoot, and she was absolutely petrified. She was physically shaking. She was that nervous. Now she'll shoot anything. She's brilliant. It's like she got into it well. But this was, I got to a point with like model shoots that I had the latest gear, I had the latest lenses and stuff, and it was becoming a bit far too clinical, you know, like everything was pin sharp. And when I looked at photographers who I love, like Helmut Newton and that, their pictures like being slightly soft and stuff, and they weren't always perfectly in focus, and they gave you a feeling sort of thing. So my friend, sadly his dad passed away, and his dad used to be an amateur photographer. And he said to me, would you want all my dad's old camera gear? And he gave me a load of old Nikon lenses and stuff, like vintage, not like 50 mils, 1.2s and stuff. So I shoot mirrorless now. So I got myself an adapter so I could put them on my mirrorless camera. And I've rarely been off my camera ever since. And this shoot with Mary, it was just, we'll just do like, I had some LED panels I was playing around with. And I just thought we'll try the vintage lenses for a change. And so I got these big fur blankets and we laid them out, and Mary got Nude. I mean, Mary's ideal for this sort of stuff because she's got really pale skin. So yeah, I'll have to do any editing after to make it look like really cool. Yeah, but this was like one of the first shots I shot using vintage lenses. Yeah, just using LED lighting. I mean, she's got a tiny catch light in her eye. That's the LED panel. Yeah, and just like shallow.
What's your post-processing kind of technique with it, with black and white? Is it because it has a granularity, this image, almost like grain is being applied? Do you like to give it noise or?
No, that's from the actual camera. The noise from the camera. That is. I think I really put, because I was shooting at 1.2. I thought, oh, I'll be all right. My ISO won't have to go high, so I put me like my LED quite low, not too powerful, because I didn't want it, because it's such a white picture. I didn't want to blow everything out. Yeah, and just whack my ISO up. I mean, I was probably at like 3,200 ISO or something ridiculous. Yeah, but I quite like grinding pictures as well.
How are you enjoying mirrorless?
Yeah, it's great. I love it. You know, it's like you can do loads of cool things with it nowadays. You know, it's opened up loads of options, and I love the fact when I'm shooting black and white, I can see black and white through the viewfinder. So, you know, years ago you'd be thinking, right, I'm looking at this scene, what sort of tones am I going to be getting when I convert it to black and white? Whereas now, it's right in front of you, and you know, you can just look at it and see it straight away. And then also with mirrorless in my black, because I've got a Nikon Z6 II, with my mirrorless, with the black and white setting, you can adjust like the RGB channels in it as well. So you can put more red in, or which is great, you know. So if you want a bit more contrasty and stuff, yeah. So yeah, it's cool.
Very good. And this kind of shoot, would you just rig it up in your own home or a studio, or what kind of thing do you do?
Yeah, a lot of it I shoot at home now. I mean, I even rent my apartment out to other photographers. They come around and shoot here. Like, so it's sort of like I live in it, and it's a sort of studio at the same time. It's yeah, I love shooting at home because it's more natural. It's not as like clinical as a studio, or like building a set and that. It's like it's a real place, you know. And luckily I've got the advantage of like I've got massive windows, so the amount of window light I get in is brilliant all throughout the day. You know, it goes from like the bedroom of a morning all the way around, and then all through the living room. And so yeah, so I shoot most of my stuff at home. But
very good.
I've built sets at home and stuff and all sorts. So it's one of the best set parts of the place.
There's a lot of natural light images in today. Are you mainly a natural light photographer, or do you like flash, or what's your priority?
If I'm doing stuff for other people, I'll usually use flash and stuff, you know, portraits and if so some corporate headshots and stuff. But for my own stuff, if I can get away with using natural light, I'll 100% I'll use it all the time, you know, depending on what the weather's like, etc. Yeah, but I just love natural light. Years ago, I joined a camera club, and they had this thing where it was like they were obsessed with like details in shadows and details in highlights and stuff, and then they always say, "Oh, never shoot in harsh light." And I used to think, why? You know, you can get some really cool stuff. And it was like they was trapped in a creative box. And I think a lot of it was they were shooting to please judges, basically. Because all the judges were telling them, this is what you got to do. You can't do anything else because they'll get marked down. And I didn't start that camera club long, to be honest, because my pictures was like harsh light, you know, I'll shoot in anything, you know, I just love harsh light.
I think in defense of a camera club, though, it's also a really good place to start if you're looking to get into model photography or food photography or kind of macro photography. You know, the camera clubs are only ever as good as the best photographer in the actual club, isn't it? You know, but it kind of just gives them. But I understand what you mean fully about obviously because obviously if somebody's a really good technician in the darkroom years ago, then the whole club would be great technicians in the darkroom, because they would have all that experience to lean on. If there was a good model photographer, the whole club who wanted to be involved in models was a good photographer and everything. Talk
Yeah.
to me about this image. It's quite explicit. And how do you strike a balance between, you know, erotic and artistic? Will be the question in a minute, but tell us about this image first.
Yeah, this is a model called Amy. She's a contortionist, so she can get into like the weirdest poses you ever imagined. I mean, this is quite tame pose for her, really. I've got shots of her with her legs back over her head and stuff, and weird things and stuff. Yeah, and this was the first time I'd ever shot her. I'd never worked with her before. And it was just one of those lucky days. This is shot in my place again. This is the corridor that goes down like to the bedrooms in my apartment.
Yeah.
And we was just blessed again with like really harsh sunlight, no clouds, and it was just creating really cool shadows from the windows and whatnot. Yeah, and I just said to her, like, we'll just do some nudes, and there was a pool of light on the floor and a bit up in the air, and so I said, just position yourself in there and just move around, and we'll see what we can get. And to be honest, Amy's brilliant at like throwing herself from shape to shape. I love like flow posing, so I'd rather just let the model just keep moving, and I'll just, when I see a picture, I'll grab it. You know, it's like, I hate saying, right, hold that, and then like, wait, hang on a minute, right, click that. Yeah, I'll just get them to keep constantly moving, sort of thing. Obviously, you need your shutter speed up, but
Yeah.
But it was just a vintage lens again. I was just testing it out, you know, do it black and white and that lovely harsh sunlight.
Everybody's going to be rushing out to buy a vintage lens and an adapter. You realise that?
Get one that's absolutely brilliant. Like, there you go. It's a little 50mm manual focus. So you need good eyesight. I hope your eyesight's. It's like going back to when I first started at the paper. Manual focus lens.
Back to the question, really. How do you balance eroticism and artistic? Are you not bothered? Is it like you shoot what you want? How does it all kind of balance in your head?
To be honest, I'm not that bothered. It's eroticism how can I explain it? Stuff like adult stuff. That's just like, it's usually brightly lit, like a glamour photo, you know, and it'll be a girl with the legs open or whatnot, you know, you sort of like lads magazine type of shoot. Whereas I try and put different elements in, like shadows, different lighting, you know, and a lot of the time I just let the model go. I mean, I'm lucky because some of the models I work with are brilliant at what they do.
Yeah.
You know, you hardly have to give them any direction, just give them like an idea. So just like, you know, look like you're having pleasure, or look like you're angry, and just do some poses, and they'll just go for it. And like I say, with the flow posing, it works out great. But yeah, I'm not really fussed about if it comes off as erotic, or it's just a shoot I like. You know, it's like, if I love it, that's all that matters, really.
Yeah. No, your own editor, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, that's it.
And as far as, you know, if we were looking at, you know, even the last image in color, do you think the color would be too much for it then? Is it too lifelike? Does it take away the artistic element to the image, do you think? Because I personally do think that. I think when I shoot a nude and it's in color, like you, I go back to the kind of the masters of black and white nudes, and I think I want to be like that. I want to shoot like that. I want to be creating images like that and things. So that's in my head, and it's like a recipe for me. Is it similar for you? You know, do you shoot much color? I suppose
if I can get away with it, I'll shoot black and white all the time. Like I say, I don't really that keen on color, especially when you're getting like the light in the background, slightly different tone or different like tint, and then it just gets too confusing for me with colors. I have done color shoots. I've done stuff with like gels and stuff, but then you know what color you're using. Whereas, it's just like, I just prefer the black and white because that color's not distracting you. You're just concentrating on the main subject. As long as you've got the light nice on the subject to make it stand out, there's no like a orange tint somewhere, or a bit of blue, which will draw the eye. You just concentrate on the main subject. Yeah. So, and like I say, I struggle with colour stuff.
Yeah. This next image is a double exposure.
Yeah.
What's the story behind this one?
This is a model called Zoe. I've shot Zoe thousands of times now. Absolutely amazing model of what they do. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, well, we've done loads of like natural light, window light art nudes before, and because I got a mirrorless now, I thought, oh, well, let's play around with what we can do with the mirrorless camera. And obviously, in a mirrorless camera, you've got multiple exposures, what you can do. Whereas like years ago, you'd do it and you'd have to wind the film back one frame to take your next shot. Yeah, so I thought we'll just play around with multiple exposures. So, and brilliantly in a mirrorless camera as well, when you do a multiple exposure shoot, you take your first frame and you can see as you're overlaying it over your next shot you're going to take. So, yeah, so I said to Zoe, we'll just do some nudes, window lit, and we'll try different zoom in, zoom out, walk backwards, take a shot, walking close, take a shot. And we did loads of different ones. I did some where she was sideways in one shot and, upside down in another. And it just works out really cool. And then like you can, with mirrorless as well, you can set what settings you want. So you can have like adaptive. So the next image will appear in the shadows. And then there's another setting where the next image will appear in the highlights. So I was just playing around really. We just spent like a couple of hours just mucking about, playing with the mirrorless camera. But we got some really cool results out of it.
Yeah, you're really passionate about photography, which I've got to, applaud you for. So very well done. Because before we went live, I was saying that there's not many pro photographers that actually pick up the camera on a weekend for fun as well with it and things. Really, they almost use any excuse not to pick it up. But how do you choose between creating a more minimalist image compared to the likes of this, a little bit more kind of complicated, or kind of a little bit more kind of complex layered kind of photograph?
Yeah, it just depends what ideas I have. Sometimes you just strip it back and all you need is a figure and a bit of light. You can overcomplicate shoots. Yeah. I've done shoots before when I thought, right, we'll have a light here, we'll put this there, and I'll have this prop, and you look at the pictures and you think, oh God, I've gone a bit too far now. It's like it's taken away from the image. Yeah, and it just varies depending on what light that day's got. If you got like really harsh sunlight, you can do stuff cool with like dark shadows and creating shadows. Or if you got soft, subdued light, a bit like this shot with Zoe, you just think, oh, just keep it simple, and then throw a spanner in the works and switch the multiple exposure thing on. Yeah, so it varies from day to day. I mean, a lot of the time you can set up a shoot and have ideas, and then during the shoot you think, actually, should we try this instead, because this might look better, and you'll totally flip it 180. I think I got that from being a press photographer, because you drive to a job, you get the job, you drive in there, and you've got the image in your head what this job's going to be like, and when you get there it's nothing like that at all, so you're on the spot then, and you've got to think fast, and you think, I'm going to have to change this round just to get something, because you've still got to get a picture. So yeah, so that's helped me really. I've done model shoots before, and we've planned a sunset shoot or a nice sunny beach shoot, and you get there and it's pouring down with rain, and and things. So yeah, so I'm constantly like throughout a shoot, while I'm shooting, an idea will drop in my head. I think, actually, stop a minute, shall we try this? And a lot of the time the models are like, yeah, why not? Luckily I work with a lot of models who I shoot all the time, so like muses basically, and I've got the advantage where they'll contact me sometimes and say, I've had an idea, can we try this? And sort of like collabing,
Yeah.
Excuse me. It's you help them out with their ideas, and then when I've got a crazy idea, they're willing to shoot it, sort of thing.
What advice would you give to somebody, who's aspiring to shoot the kind of stuff that you're doing? Any kind of beginner's guide?
With nude stuff and things, you really need to know your camera inside out before you'd approach doing a nude shoot. You should be able to use your camera in the dark, know where every button is, this and that. And the reason for that is if you go to book a model to do a nude shoot and you're standing there fumbling around because you don't know what you're doing, the model suddenly gets this barrier come up and they think, hang on, is this person just want to see a naked woman? Because they don't seem to know what they're doing. So know your camera, like every setting, you know, perfect before you approach a nude. Because with a nude shoot, especially when it's someone new, you've got to keep the conversation going. And if you're just stood there quiet, being quiet's the worst thing on a nude shoot, because the model just thinks, oh God, they get this thing is like, it's a weird bloke now, you know, because you're being silent. And they're like, when I arrived, he was all chatty, and now I'm taking pictures and he's gone dead quiet, and it just makes them like, and you get a barrier up, and that's when you don't get the best pictures out of them, because they're in the back of their mind, they're concerned about you then. So try not to fumble around. And like I said, keep the conversation going. My shoots are quite long. I like to shoot for a good 4 or 5 hours if I can. But with that, I have lots of breaks, so you can chat to the model, and it just breaks the ice down. The more breaks you can have and chat to them, especially if it's a new model you've never shot with before, it just relaxes them. Then, I mean, they might have something in common they do with you, and like you can talk about that and ask them about the family, and you know, and as you'll see, like I always say, the first few like sets in a shoot are always like the first nervous, awkward, not very good shots, and then as you get to know them more and more, they're more relaxed. It's towards the end of the shoot you get all your better stuff. So communication is crucial. Keep talking to them even while you're shooting. You know, tell them how to pose or tell them to move. Stuff like that. But don't use any crude words while shooting a model. You know, like don't say, "Oh, you've got lovely so and so's," or you know, your watch so and so looks good. You know, things like that, because that barrier will go back up again. Just say things like, "Yeah, that looks really cool." You know, "Yeah, or turn your head that way." You know, stuff like that. Just keep it professional and stuff like that.
Talk to me about this image.
This was I used to have a friend, and he used to do group shoots at his house, and this is a model called Gabriella, and we used to go in his back garden and this that, and the other and do shoots. There'd be like 6 or 7 photographers, but a lot of them were like pretty new, still learning, so they used to it was always like bang on headshots, straight on, shoot the model and stuff. And then we'd try and tell him, why don't you come around this way? Why don't you come around that way? And we was messing around, and we was shooting around Gabriella outside up against just a brick wall in harsh sunlight. And they were loving it, you know. It was just like something cool. They hadn't done it. And like a lot of them were panicking. Oh no, it's harsh sunlight. I'm not meant to be shooting in this. And you're like, you can, you know, it'll get some cool shots. So then I ran in the house and I took his curtains down from out of his living room window, and I got like a backdrop stand, and then I just hung a piece of net curtain up outside. It's just to like where the left of the image is, just out of shot, and we had the sun shining through it. It was obviously casting the shadows on our skin. And they were all like amazed, like, how cool is this? And it's like, it just shows you what you can get with like just a piece of net, you know, like a simple thing. So and then we got them moving around and doing different angles and stuff. But it's just a simple ideas. You know, people think you've got to spend thousands to get cool shots, and you ain't. Just a bit of old net curtain from the rag market in Birmingham, and you're well away.
I suppose you're saying about the group shoots, and go back to the last question that we were on about getting started and everything else. That's not a bad place to start, is it, really, being a part of a group or going on a workshop as well? That can break you in, isn't it? And I would say another one is to make sure that when you're contacting a model and you're booking a model for the first time that you've not shot together before, is make sure that they know that you're kind of quite new to this and so on with it, because they'll usually handhold you all the way through it as well, and they will kind of bring their game on a little bit higher, and that almost explains to a professional model, an experienced model, they'll know you're a little bit techie, you're worried about what's going on in here and things ready, and they want too much pressure. But a group shoot is not a bad idea, I think, to actually when you're getting going as well.
No, definitely, they're really good group shoots. Lighting workshops, things like that. You just got to be careful what ones you go on, because there is a lot of scammers out there who will fleece you. I've heard horror stories from models and other photographers. Because I used to run workshops years ago in a studio in Loughborough, and they'd come in, and my idea of a workshop was teach people how to take photos of models. You know, I want them to leave knowing they've learned something. And they used to tell me stories saying they've been on this workshop. There was a famous, quite a popular photographer at the time, and he took great photos. And he started running workshops, and they was really expensive. One of my mates went on one, and he come back and he said, you know, I said, how'd you get on? Was it good? He paid like ridiculous amount of money. And he said, well, he goes, all he did was, we got there, he told us to put all our cameras in aperture priority and said, right, there's the model, shoot her. And that was it. And he'd supplied the model in the studio, but he hadn't taught him anything. So you got to be careful. You know, if you see workshops or group shoots, see if you can find out what photographers were on them, and message them and say, was it any good? Did you get anything out of it and stuff like that?
Really good idea, that.
Yeah, it's quite easy to, especially on Facebook groups.
Yeah,
because once they've done the shoot, they'll all post the pictures on that Facebook group, so you can say, all right, he took that. I'll drop him a message saying, was it a good group shoot? Did you get anything out of it? You know, did you learn anything, basically? Just gotta be careful with it.
Okay, our next image, we've got double models.
Two models. It's Zoe again and Heather this time. Years ago, one of my favorite photographers is Helmut Newton, and years ago I used to have a frame print of a Helmut Newton print of these two naked models. They're in like an apartment in France or like Paris, and it's just window lit, and they're just relaxing on like a bed on the floor and this and it. And I used to absolutely love this image, and I thought I really must try and do that, like similar one day. And it just, we had a shoot, me, Heather and Zoe one day, and I said, should we try it now? You know, we'll give it a go. So I just run around my flat, grab loads of props and bits of net, an old screen, a plant, threw some of my photography books on there, got some sheets and stuff. And it's all just one window lit. I closed the blinds in the other window behind me, and I just wanted light coming through one window. Yeah, and we did like a whole series. You know, I did some wide shots, portraits, you know, landscapes. And it was a bit of an experiment, really. I love it. I mean, this is one of my most favourite shoots I've done for ages. You know, it was just good fun to do, and I like models when they're smoking and things. And it's Peter Lindbergh's, you know, like all Peter Lindbergh stuff. He always had smoking models and that, and I just think he adds something to the picture, because his explanation was, you either got a model who's not posing or they're posing. If you give them something like a cigarette, they're sort of in between. They're relaxed, but they also pose as well. You see, it's weird to explain. So so I just like give them a cigarette and got them to chill out and just look relaxed and stuff.
How do you approach working with a more inexperienced, almost amateur model versus a professional model that you've worked with quite often and things really? How do you approach the difference?
Well, like I said before, it's the communication to start with, because you've got to get them to feel relaxed. Because if they're new, they've probably not done many shoots, and they'll be a nervous wreck. I mean, I'd be a nervous wreck if I just turned up and someone was going to photograph me. So you've got to find ways to relax them and just like keep showing them the pictures as well whilst you're taking them. Because a lot of models, they don't realise how good they look, especially new models. Especially if you put them in poses and they feel awkward. But to the photographer, it looks cool. But they don't realise that because they haven't learnt that sort of thing. So just keep showing them the pictures all the time. So look, this is what we're getting. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh my God, is that me? You know, like I didn't think I could look that good. And then the confidence goes up another level and they relax more and they think, oh, he knows what he's doing. You know, I'll get some cool pictures. Yeah, so keep doing that. But so going back to about setting up shoots, like when you're new and like obviously working with professional models is a good idea, because if you don't know how to pose a model, they'll just pose and you can get some good shots. But I also think working with inexperienced models is a great help, because one, it learns you how to pose models. Then you're not just having someone do it for you. So you've got to learn then, how can I make this model look good? Because she don't know what she's doing. So I've got to try and work out how to make it look good. So yeah, so working with like amateur models as well, it's always a good thing, because if you just shoot professional models all the time, when you come to shoot someone who's new, she's going to stand there, you're going to stand there, because she don't know what to pose, you don't know how to pose her. So yeah, so work with amateurs as well, it's great. And you'll get more out of it.
Our next image.
Right, this
smoking
is
again. There's a theme going on here.
I love smoking pictures, as you can probably tell. Yeah, this is Heather again when she had longer hair. Yeah, like I said, I love Peter Lindbergh and like his smoking shots and stuff. And I wanted to do something a bit almost fashiony, just black and white, natural light again. And I said to Heather, should we just do some shots a bit voyeurish? So I don't want you to look at the camera. I just want you to be in your own little world, chilling out.
Yeah.
And then bizarrely, I think it was Heather suggested, she goes, why don't I just sit on the toilet and pretend I'm going on the loo? I was like, we'll try it. So I just like went all the way down, like long lens, low, like wide open aperture. And luckily I've got a little window which just lit her face perfectly. And we got her smoking. And she just did some like nonchalant, no camera there, you know, and it just worked really well. And she loves this picture. When I showed her after, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna get that printed and put on my wall." Yeah, and it just worked really well. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you know, people are against smoking and stuff, and they don't like it and that," but I don't care. As long as I like it, it's my picture. I don't care if I get likes on it or people love it or hate it. You know, as long as I'm happy with it, it's great.
When you're booking your own model, and you were looking for somebody new, let's say that you haven't worked with before, are you looking for something specific, body shape wise, you know, look wise and things? Really, what's your preference? In other words, I suppose.
No, not really. I mean, that doesn't bother me. I know there's quite a lot of shallow photographers out there who won't work with like bigger models, you know, like overweight models and stuff. I'll shoot anyone. You know, I don't care what size you are, you know, what color you are, this, that, and the other, because you learn more then. You learn more about, okay, this is like quite a big, what they call plus size model. How am I going to make a plus size model look sexy? And, you know, you're not just sticking to stick thin, you know, models all the time. And it'll help you with your photography. And yeah, I don't really look for sizes and stuff, you know, as long as I've got, I love shooting alternative models, so like tattooed models. One, because they're all usually slightly crazy, which is fun. And a lot of them as well, they're quite creative, the alternative like models. So they're willing to try like weird ideas, you know, let's tip a bucket of paint over your head and see what we get, you know, stuff like that. So that's why I love shooting alternative models. But apart from that, no, I don't care what size you are or, you know, what you look like.
What's the story behind this image?
It's that natural light again. This is actually behind me. Yeah, this is Heather again with a different hair. It's the other thing with alternative models. They always change the look every few months. So it's like you're shooting new models anyway. Yeah, this was like, we had really harsh light again, and I wanted to try my vintage lens. I got like a 35mm vintage lens with like a blue, like the lens is blue in it, you know, it's like really old. I think it's like a Carl Zeiss one. So I thought we'll play around with that. And we'd done some shots of Heather in like the full suit, you know, like androgynous type of thing, like slicked all her hair back, put a suit and tie on her and stuff. We did some fashiony shots. And then when we was having a break, I said, oh, that light's really cool now coming through the windows. And she's like, oh, say what? She goes, I'll just put some like knickers on and well, keep the jacket and I'll just wear nothing underneath. And we put some big sunglasses on what we got. And we just got some harsh light shots. I love shooting in a harsh light. A lot of people are scared of it. I don't know why, but I think going back to being a press photographer, a lot of the time I had to shoot stuff in harsh light because that's all I had, you know. So you learn how to use it. And now modern day cameras, the dynamic range on a modern day camera, you can get away with doing stuff in harsh light. Yeah, and I just think it adds mood and feeling to it, and you know, put some sunglasses on and smoking again. I'm obsessed with smoking.
The next shot of the girls.
Right, it's Heather again and Katie this time. I told you I shoot these girls a lot. They're absolutely brilliant. That's why I have them back all the time, because you know they're so good at what they do. I started a project. I got this old wingback chair at home, and on one of my shoots, I did just an art nude shoot on this chair, and the model was doing all weird poses on it and stuff, and it come out really well. And I thought, oh, I wonder if I could get a series out of this, just called like the chair. So what I started doing, every time a model come over and we did a shoot at mine, I'd say, can I do some art nude shots of you on this chair? But I'm not going to tell you what I want. I want you to do different things on this chair. How would you sit on a chair? How would you pose on a chair? Just so it got them thinking what they could do. I mean, I had models upside down, hanging off the back of it, you know, like crazy stuff. And I shot about 15 models over about a year's period, all just on this chair using natural window light. It was just an experiment just to see what they'd come up with. And yeah, and I've got all these pictures now, and I'm either going to try and turn it into a book or maybe a zine or something like that. So yeah. I've got a few hundred pictures to get through. I can turn it in. Yeah, and this was one when I had Katie and Heather over for a shoot. I said, well, can we try the chair with two here? Because I hadn't done two models. And yeah, and they just like went for it and did different things and poses and stuff.
What's your preferred?
This one's more them.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
What's your preferred working aperture when you're shooting? Do you change it when you're working with a duo compared to a single, or do you keep around about the same aperture all the time?
Well, sometimes I'll just leave it at like 1.4, 2.8, you know, that type of thing. I love blurry backgrounds. One, because it brings out your subject even more, obviously. But yeah, but I'll mix it up. It's like when I do like fashion shoots and things, I'll shoot around about f8. Because if you look at fashion things, it's got quite a big depth of field in fashion shots. And because obviously a fashion shoot, it's about the clothes and stuff. So you don't want a pin sharp model's head and like blurry clothes, you know. So I shoot like that. But yeah, but I'll try and keep like low apertures if I can, like from 1.2 almost. And I don't care if one model's sharp and one goes out, because I just think it adds a bit of feeling to the photo. Yeah, I love like shallow depth of fields and stuff, which is great on a vintage lens as well. And you also, with vintage lenses, you get cool vignette, like natural vignettes, which look brilliant.
I know we're not showing any of the images tonight, but let's people might not know that you shoot for some pretty big brands as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
Marvel and Disney, Nintendo, Microsoft. I mean, there's some major brands in those things on your purple port. You know, there's some big name drops there, isn't there? So as
I
much
mean,
as you're doing this, you've got, you know, the day job is photography as well, isn't it?
yeah, I know. That's why people always say, "Why do you still take pictures when you're not even at work?" Yeah, my current job, I do stuff for a company called Merchide. So we got like the licenses to create products and clothes, like you say, Marvel, Disney, Warner Brothers. So we do Harry Potter stuff. Yeah, and do quite a bit of product photography and also fashion shoots. So we create clothes, so like a Warhammer jumper or something like that. So that, yeah. And when I was freelance, did stuff for like Harvey Nichols and Selfridges. Yeah, and like different designers and that. So yeah, so I mean, I've been quite blessed really with who I've got to work with over the years. Yeah.
So we got one color image.
Yeah.
Talk to me color. Talk to me about
I
color.
don't know anything about this picture, Mark.
I know you're colorblind, but yeah.
No,
If you're just joining us,
this was
he is colorblind, Jason. Okay, I wasn't just throwing a thing out.
No, I definitely am. Yeah, don't ask me what's green and what's brown because I won't be able to know. Yeah, this is another one of those ones from like my mate's house where he used to rent out. This is now, as far as professional models go, this is a girl called Tanya Atherton, and she's like top level model. She's absolutely brilliant. You could give her a bin liner and she'd make it look like a fashion item. She can just pull it on. Anyway, so we was doing a shoot with Tanya, like some nude with this big fur coat, and that harsh sunlight again. And my mate had got a load of big trees in his back garden, and the sunlight was shining through them, and just creating the like dappled tree lights on the wall behind her. So yeah, and when I was shooting this with black and white in mind, I thought eventually I'll convert it to black and white. But when I came to convert it, the tones in Tanya's body were almost the same as the tones in the wall. So it was losing her basically. I mean, I could have gone in, cut round her, and made like the background a bit darker or lighter than her, you know, just to mix it up. But it just worked better in colour in the end. So I just thought I'll leave it in colour, a rare colour shot. Yeah, so you got to be careful when you're doing black and white shoots, especially if you're not using a mirrorless camera, because you'll look at a picture which is in colour, obviously,
yep,
and you think, oh yeah, that'll look cool when I convert it. But sometimes you convert it, and the skin will be the same tone as the grass they're on, or you know, and it just doesn't work at all. And you think, oh, maybe I should have did it a bit brighter or a bit contrastier or something like that. But yeah, but this was just one. It just looked better in colour, to be honest.
Are you tempted to skin soften at all? The questions just come through.
I did on this. I mean, this is quite a few years old. This shot. When I first started doing model shots, I was obsessed with smoothing skin, and I was using plugins for everything like Portrait Pro and all that stuff. And it got to the point where I think I was going too far, and that just looked plastic. And the apps I was using weren't very good, to be honest. They won't keeping like pores in skin and stuff. So now I have to explain to a lot of models, look, I'm not going to turn you into a plastic doll. I try and keep the editing to a minimum. If they've got like moles and like blemishes and stuff, I'll leave them in, you know, because I just think it looks better. It's more natural. It's them sort of thing. Yeah. I've booked models before, and you look at the portfolio and you think, oh yeah, they look quite cool, and they turn up and they're nothing like what their profile is like, because they've just been overly photoshopped. Yeah. I've had models turn up and they're twice the size of what they are on their profile, and so I hate over editing pictures. So I'd rather keep it natural. I mean, I've done shoots before, and I've sent the models the pictures, and they've sent them back saying, any chance you could like make my skin a bit smoother or remove this and remove that? And I'm like, well, no, You know, I want raw images. I want you as you are. You know, I don't want to get rid of. Yeah, if they got us like a scar or something they want to get rid of, then fair enough. But I'll never overly edit people anymore. Like, you know, it's that school of Peter Lindbergh. He never really over edited his images, which made the models people rather than mannequins. You know, it's like he gave them personality. That's what they look like. That's what they're naturally like. So that's what I love, really. So yes, I've like way knocked back that over editing stuff.
And our last image?
Yeah, well, this is another one of my chair shoots. This was and bizarrely, this girl isn't a model. This girl is another photographer. I worked with her on different jobs over the years, and sadly, a few years ago, she lost her husband in a skiing accident, and obviously she was bad. She was really bad for a year. And when I used to see her all the time, I always used to say, "Oh, you'll have to let me do a shoot with you one day." And she'd be like, "Oh no, I wouldn't want to be photographed." You know, it was that kind of thing. And out of the blue, she messaged me one day and she went, "Jason," she goes, "I've realised life's too short. I want to do it like a nude shoot. And then the only person I'll do it with is you because I trust you." And I was like, "Okay, we'll try it." Yeah, and she turned up and we did this shoot. And I said, "While you're here, do you want to try and experiment, see what you can do with the chair?" And yeah, and she did brilliantly. Considering she'd never done a shoot before, she was always the other side of the camera. She was absolutely awesome. And we've done a few shoots now since. Yeah, absolutely great. I think I've given her the bug now, so I think I've created a monster. But she loves it.
In fact, I had a trainee photographer decades ago that actually ended up being a model, but not for me, for others. She loved assisting me and everything else with it while we were photographing the models. She got really friendly with one of the models, another girl, and the model said, "You should just try it. You got a great look and everything else with it." And she went on to become a model and things, really, and she still takes photographs as well and things, really. And it's just that kind of next stage, isn't it? Where it's got to be something that kind of makes you do something or kind of encourages somebody else to do it and things, really. Very good.
Yeah, I think
Jason, been absolutely brilliant, mate. I know we said at the beginning that we could talk for hours, you and I think. On the street. Yeah, really, really great. Look, guys, if you'd like to see more of Jason's work, you can head over to Purple Port. Just actually look for Jason Skarratt Photography. I'll put some links anyway. Jason's got an Instagram as well that you can go and see, as well as his own YouTube channel where you can see some behind the scenes of shoots and everything else with it and things, really. So worth going to have a little bit of a look. And how often do you post? It looks quite often on your kind of front page there.
I was trying to post weekly, but I soon realised that is like an absolute ridiculous challenge in itself. So I've sort of slowed down with the posting now. I've got a load of footage still needing to edit, so I've still got loads of shoots behind the scenes, like art nude stuff and that. So it's just a case of when I've got time to sit down and edit them, I'll drop them straight on. But yeah, I don't censor them as well. So what you see is what you get, basically.
What you get. Stuart, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, and perhaps we can get you back again to kind of talk about the chair, perhaps, or we'll kind of pick up a different thing. But it's been absolutely exhilarating. Loads of thank yous coming through, really looking. Thanks for inspiring photographers. That's the first thing I've got to say. I do this for the love of photography, and I think you come from a very, very similar camp.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, I'm the most happiest when I got a camera in my hand. It's as simple as that, really.
And you know what? It doesn't have to be nude photography. It can be anything that you want, isn't it, really? But if you pick up a camera and you go for a walk down a street, you're a better photographer than you were if you didn't pick up the camera and walk down a street. I mean, that's the key thing with it. But
I mean, I'll go crazy. I'll just constantly. I mean, I've just bought a Rolleiflex, so that's my next thing to do, you know, just to try something different. So going back to film, I'm going backwards. Vintage lenses, no film. I'll have a plate camera next.
See, when you say a vintage camera, it's basically, that's what I grew up on. So you don't rub it in. Oh, well, there you go.
This
I
weekend,
never actually had a Rolly, but I had everything else, I think.
This weekend is its first outing. So,
yeah, very good. Thanks very much. And I'm sure we'll be dragging you back again, Jason. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks, everybody, for joining us live. Loads and loads of thank yous coming through, Jason. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Good night, everybody.
For, the questions.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.